Just a few words about the University of Massachusetts Boston. It is the only public university in Boston and is the most diverse campus in New England. About 60% of our undergraduates are the first to attend university, and a majority of them are also multilingual. The university's mission is twofold. It's to serve our undergraduates and then to provide resources for a large variety of graduate programs, MA programs, and PhD programs for research and scholarship and creative activities. Our MFA program is unique because it's a 3-year program. We designed it that way to give our students an additional year to focus entirely on their theses. The curriculum for the first 2 years of the program consists of 2 courses, a workshop in your genre, and a second course, which would be a literature course, or what we call a creative writing elective course. Examples of a few of these creative writing electives would be a poetics course. We have a documentary poetics course. We have a course on the lyric. We have a memoir course. We have a course in literary and small press publishing. We have a course called Techniques of Fiction, which is a literature course based on craft and reading as a working writer. And then we have a number of courses that are offered on a one-time basis by faculty members, essentially according to their individual interests. Some of these in the past have been writing and publishing book reviews, a literary translation course, and a digital poetics course. In the 3rd year of the program, as I said, you would focus one-on-one with a faculty member on writing and revising your thesis. And this, again, we really think is an important part of the program and one that deserves a year of focus and concentration. All our students receive some financial support and funding in exchange for 9 hours of work per week for what we call an assistantship. In the first year, these assistantships are internship-like work that you would be doing at an established and renowned independent literary press or an arts organization like 826 Boston, started by Dave Edgars. And the idea of this is, to give you something to put on your CV and to parlay into something that you could do professionally as a writer later on. And then in your 2nd and 3rd year, you would either teach a creative writing course of your own or a composition course of your own, or you would be a TA for a large lectureship and you would support a faculty member in that role. I want to say one more thing, which is that we have our own literary magazine called the Breakwater Review. It's entirely student run out of our MFA program. It publishes poetry, fiction, and interviews with established writers. And we're really excited right now because in 2017, the Breakwater Review published one of the first, if not the very first, stories of the writer Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenaah, whose debut novel just came out. It's called Chain Gang All-Stars and is currently a finalist for the National Book Award. So if he wins that, we're going to be very excited and bragging about the fact that we were really the first to bring his work to readers. A few words about our teaching and pedagogy program. We do not put students into the classroom without adequate preparation. Should you teach your own course, you're required to take a course on pedagogy. That course would either be the teaching of creative writing, that's a semester-long course, or the teaching of composition, should you want to teach composition. Again, a semester-long course. And then when you're in the classroom teaching your course for the first year, you're part of what's called the intern seminar, which you take for credit as well. It's essentially a peer group of other MFA students teaching their first year. And that's led by a faculty member in the MFA program and meets weekly to give you support during that first year. A brief word about our faculty. We have a core faculty of 5 writers. poetry and fiction writers who have scores of books and awards between them. In poetry, we have Jill McDonough, and a new addition to our faculty. We're really excited about him, Xiangyang Feng. He came from the West to be with us, and we are currently working on hiring a third poet. In fiction, we have myself. We also have novelist, essayist, and short story writer Oskol Milnicek, who is editor and founder of Aerosmith Press. He also is the founding editor of Agni magazine. He had a poem actually just come out in the New Yorker. And we also have a third fiction writer, a visiting fiction writer who changes every 2 years. And the visitor teaches workshops and other courses and works one-on-one with students to direct their theses. In the past, this writer has been Jennifer Haig, Fanny Howe, ZZ Packer, Joan Wickersham. Currently, the writer, novelist, short story writer, and creative nonfiction writer Eileen Pollock is the visiting writer. We're a small program. We take about 10 students a year, 5 in fiction and 5 in poetry, which means that we're about 30 students in all. So this is a 6-to-1 student faculty ratio, which gives you and us lots of time together. Brief word about the alumni. If you read our invitation letter, you know that they're doing great things. They're publishing widely in large New York houses, wonderful small presses. They're winning major awards and publishing their poetry and fiction in some of the most prestigious journals out there, like the Kenyon Review, Plowshares, and The Sun. They're also running arts organizations, and they're editors at presses like Beacon Press here in Boston. And some are working as literary agents in New York and are tenure track professors at universities in creative writing across the nation and as far away as Taiwan. So they're doing great, and they're going to keep doing great. Finally, a word about Boston for those of you who might not be familiar with it. There are an enormous number of institutions that support the arts and literature here, including some of the country's best independent bookshops. So it's a really exciting place to be. There are countless reading series and lecture series that bring in the newest, youngest writers and the most established writers, Nobel laureates, you name it. Everybody comes to Boston. There's really only one place, I think, in the country that rivals it, which is New York City, but why you'd go there, we don't know. So you can't begin to do the minimum of what's offered in Boston without being overwhelmed. It's a place that really cares about writing, and it's an exciting place to be. So that said, I'm going to hand things over to our poet Xiangyang now. So Xiangyang's going to talk about a few things, his pedagogy, and maybe read a poem. And yeah.
Thank you, John, for that information. Hi, everyone. I have to second that Boston is a great city. It's the best decision of my life that I flew from the West and moved to Boston. There's a lot of things going on, and literary events, just countless of them. I'm taking my students right after this session to the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, and we're going to spend an afternoon there writing ekphrastic poetry. And then after that, I'm taking my graduate student to a reading in Cambridge. The poet Forrest Ganner is going to read tonight. And one of my students told me last week, it's like, oh my God, I admire Forrest Ganner because he wrote a book on lichens, which I didn't know. And he said, I studied lichens when I was an undergrad. I was like, how wonderful. And well, he's here and you get the chance to meet him. And I also want to second what John said about the 3-year program and the importance of having the 3-year time to develop your manuscript, develop your skill as a writer. I was doing an event at a 1-year program most recently, and the students are pretty frustrated about the fact that it's a 1-year program. that they have to move to a new city, being anxious about it, having no friends, creating a new community, and at the same time write a book and plan your future. While a 3-year program, you have time to be depressed, have time to fool around, to have time to experiment, to practice your writing, to really engage in this process, to be playful instead of just writing a book. And I think especially the 3rd year on your thesis is tremendously important. I got my book taken, signed the contract during my 3rd year MFA. So I really appreciate the extra time. So the way I teach my class, if you take the 1st year MFA workshop with me, I will give you prompt for the whole semester, probably 10 weeks, specific prompts and restraints, accompanied by little anthologies I made for the students, like love poetry, elegies, narrative, political writing, etc. And each week you're turning a new poem, and we workshop that poem, because I believe without reading, you can't be a good writer. So it's kind of a seminar and workshop combination, hybrid form. And the 2nd year, if you continue to take MFA workshop with me, it will be about portfolio workshop instead of individual poems, so that we can discuss the arc, or your thematic arc in your writing, the stylistic aspect of it, which really prepares you for your 3rd year when you are writing a whole book manuscript. So we can look at things in the larger scale. And the 3rd year thesis, this is my favorite part, and how I like to conduct a thesis meeting with my student, because I'm new in Boston. I want to explore everything. So I would explore restaurants with my student, and we go to a restaurant for lunch and then talk about their thesis. Last time I met with a student, we went to a place that has pho burrito. Can you imagine pho noodle wrapped in a burrito? When I heard it, I was like, this is some kind of dark magic. But I tried it. It was delicious. So that's something we can do together, enjoying food in Boston while talking about poetry. Nothing's better than that. And well, I think I'll just read a poem, because this is a poem many years ago when I was still an MFA student. I wrote when I visited Boston MFA, the Museum of Fine Arts, and I was transfixed by a painting. And I thought, one day I'll move to this city and just have these arts around me. And this is the poem. Foretaste of Disaster. Young, therefore vain and wingless, he lets his father tie a blue thread around his chest. It is before the famous tragedy, the fall, before the imminent sea. The coast still composed in subdued hues and regimented patterns, the abstraction of waves has yet to be mutilated by a scream, human position yet to be tested. He, at his prime, Anthony Van Dyck, blazing like an overripe Flemish peach, presented this self-portrait, in which an old man tethers a wing to a young man's pale, well-knit back. Here, grief has yet to become visible, as in Bruegel's stick out of the water, legs white as boiled chicken. In his early 20s, Icarus, the trespasser or cross-dresser, was punished for his pride. In his early 20s, Van Dyck portrayed himself as Icarus in a painting in front of which I stand looking him in the eyes. Tomorrow, I'll be a quarter of a century old. My father disappeared like an antelope into the dawning gold. But if and when Icarus survives his drowning, stepping out of the sea as if out of a Cavafy poem, dripping with synonyms of passion and desire, who will untie the blue thread from his chest? Who will save me? Come to change my life. And again, I'm taking my students there where I wrote that poem, and they will write better poems, I hope, and I believe so. So it will be very exciting. And now I will hand this conversation to our MFA graduate coordinator, Jen.
Thank you. I have to come out of my reverie after listening to your poem. So now you're all probably wondering, how do I get into this program? How can I study with these fabulous faculty? And I'll just give you some quick notes on that. And before I do, I'm going to put my email address in the chat box for you, because inevitably there will be questions that come up, and you can email me and I will get back to you with a response or find an answer for you. So please keep that handy as you're going through the application process. So in order to apply, you'll need to go through what's called GradCast. So we use a system that most universities and colleges are using for graduate school, where you apply through GradCast. And I'm going to put that link in the chat box as well. Now, when you log into GradCast, you're going to need to find our program. And this is an important part. You want to make sure that you look under creative writing rather than English or MFA, because it is alphabetical and you'll have trouble finding us if you don't look under creative writing. And I'm just leaving you a note in the chat box to make sure you do that as well. So once you find us and you begin to apply, you'll need to have some things ready for that. You're going to have 3 letters of recommendation ready to submit, or you'll put in the recommenders in GradCast and they'll submit directly. On our website, it does mention that at least 2 of those letters should come from a previous teacher, but we also do receive students. We have many students who come to us through the workforce who've already completed their bachelor's degrees and they're working, and there are people who are more familiar with their work more recently in a professional sphere. Those people would also be wonderful recommenders, so you can have somebody like that write a letter of recommendation for you. And again, just send me an email if you have a question about that. You'll also need to have a personal statement ready, and that should be about 3 to 5 pages double-spaced. There's a prompt on our website about that, and there's also a prompt that you'll get through GradCast. There you want to just mention why you want to be in our program, why UMass Boston, why Boston. Talk about your writing and reading life and why you're looking to get your MFA. And then you also want to make sure that you make clear if you are applying as a fiction writer or a poet. So, and there are different requirements for that as well. If you're applying as a fiction writer, you're going to want to submit a writing sample between 15 and 20 pages long, double-spaced, of fiction. And then if you're applying as a poet, you'll need to submit about 10 pages of poetry. If you want to apply as both and just kind of play the odds there, you can do that. And in that case, you'd need to submit both writing samples. So those are the basics for our application process. I'm going to also put our website up here again, so you'll have that handy. And with that, I guess we'll open the floor for questions, if anybody has any questions about the application process or the program itself.
If you really want to know what's going on, see some of the visiting writers who are coming, see some of what the students are doing, check out our social media. Instagram is especially, I think, lively, but we're also on Facebook. We're also more limited on what's called X now. But Instagram would be a really great place to just get a sense of who our students are, who we are, what's going on, both inside the classroom and a bit outside the classroom. So, yeah. Great. And there's the application deadline, January 15th. It is not a hard deadline, which is to say that you can still apply afterwards. It's a priority deadline. However, I would strongly recommend that you meet that deadline, because usually we don't have spaces left in the program after that. Sometimes we do, and we will still take 1 or 2 students after that deadline, but usually we select our 5 poets and our 5 fiction writers from the initial pool that we get. right up until January 15th. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. We're really looking forward to reading your work and considering you as MFA students with us here in Boston.